Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Ravi, and I'm your host for the Why Not IAM podcast, a community that is playing a major role in promoting identity and access management and helping individuals learn about IAM, grow into their IAM journey with the help of all the community members. So, this is the part two of the pre sale series with Pulkit. In this episode, we have further deep dived into the process around pre-sales. How do you find the customer? What is the right process to acquire the customer? Where does the process of customer journey starts? And what are the key things that you should keep in mind while working as a pre-sales, and many more other interesting topics. I have thoroughly enjoyed and I've learned a lot. As I said, I um, was under the impression that pre-sales is more on the overall cybersecurity, and it might not have much impact solely on the IAM side of the world. But talking to Pulkit made me really knowledgeable. It has helped me grow my experience, and I hope every one of you will grow from here and will definitely aspire to get into the roles of pre-sales and help your organization individually. So without any further ado, let's begin.
Welcome to India's first identity podcast. Why not IAM?
Hey, hi, Pulkit. Thank you very much again for joining us on the second episode. And the first episode was really great. We really got very good insights from you. And in this coming episode, we are trying to deep dive more into your mind and try to understand the technicality of what goes behind getting a customer. How do you get a customer? What is the end-to-end process of a pre-sales manager from getting a customer to implementing a solutions and many more.
Yep.
So again, it is really great to host you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you so much for having me again. It's been a real pleasure recording the last episode with you and looking forward to recording this.
Thank you. So I would like to straight jump into the overall process, right, of the pre-sales journey. For example, if I am a customer
Hmm.
and you being a pre-sales manager or HCL being a company, right, or any HCL Infosys, what is the overall process of getting a customer onboarded to a point where the entire solution is implemented? Can you walk our viewers through the step by step process of sales team getting in touch to
Hmm.
an operations team supporting the product implementation?
Sure. So, Ravi, there are different ways through which these customer leads come to us. At times, the customer, they have a plan, they have a requirement, and they want to look out for some partner for this. They roll out what we call as an RFP, request for a proposal. The RFP is basically like a single document or a set of documents that explains, at least at a high level, what they really need from the suppliers.
Okay.
So this is something that comes from the customer. But many a times, right, like any organization, IT services organizations, they also have their certain sales targets, and they also do proactive pitching. So at
Mhm.
times what happens is that our sales and accounts team, they talk to the customer, and they indicate at a very high level what are our capabilities in the identity domain and how we can help. So in that sense, it becomes more of a two-way communication. These identity requirements, they come more proactively. This difference is largely at the initial level. Then when a more solid requirement, either in the form of a request for proposal or an email or whatever, if it comes to our account sales team, they reach out to us. They say that there seems to be a certain identity requirement, and they need our help to actually and accurately identify the requirement and help with the proposal for this.
Okay.
So that's where we come in. We review all the documentation and all the information that we have. And at times, it may be an existing customer of the organization, where we may not be delivering identity services, but some other services might be getting delivered. So we try to gather as much intel about the customer as possible.
Okay.
If they know, if we have some internal details about the customer's identity landscape, we fetch them through our internal sources. Otherwise, we draft mostly a set of few questions, and we send it across to the customer. At times, the customer is willing to get on a call with us and discuss all of these questions. At times, the customer might be just simply responding it over an email. But yeah, the second step is basically asking more questions to the customer and getting those details. Once we have sufficient amount of information from the customer, where you know we can take certain reasonable assumptions about the stuff that we don't know, we start with the solutioning. So we start with what information we know about the customer, the kind of landscape that they have. Do they have any identity solutions or not? What all are their existing configurations? And then we evaluate what is the end result that the customer really wants out of this process, for which
Okay.
the customer would be paying to any service partner. Then once we know where they currently are at
Mhm.
and what state they want to be, we devise the path for the customer. We ascertain the technical requirements as well as the business requirements of the customer
Mhm.
and start preparing the proposal for this.
Okay.
So
And okay. And that
yeah.
would be a technical proposal or business proposal?
So, Ravi, it would be a mix of both. While the customer is always interested in the actual commercial cost
Mhm.
that we will be charging the customer, but the customer also wants to see the technical benefits that they will get, the kind
Okay.
of services that we will be delivering. It will also entail, these proposals will entail what we currently know about the customer's environment and about the things that we do not know. We take some reasonable assumptions,
Okay. Based on
and
experience.
yes, all of this is documented along with our capabilities and how we will deliver these services. This is typically sent across to the customer.
Okay.
Now the next step typically is that the customer would want to get on a call with us or have in person face to face meetings to basically discuss what we are really offering to them, and if they have any queries, any clarifications they need, that they can get clarified. Typically, I would say that if it's only a requirement of identity services, customer might carve out like 30-minute or 1 to 2 hour worth of discussion time. It
Mhm.
may be in person, where either the person, the solution architect who is working on this bit and who has done the end-to-end solutioning, either he or she will be traveling to customers premises, or it might be remote. Or in certain times where, let's say, I'm working on certain requirement but the customer wants to meet in person. However, if I'm not able to travel for whatever reason, someone else from our team might travel for those kind of meetings. But yeah, the next step is your either face to face or on call meetings with the customer.
Okay. Okay. That really
Then
helps build that bond, right? Mostly that's what I've felt when you talk to customer face to face.
yes, it gives you a proper understanding of how the customer is thinking,
Mhm.
especially if it's like a face to face meeting, right? You get to know the non-verbal cues. There may be many things that the customer might not explicitly say to you, but your non-verbal cues, those facial expressions, how the customer is responding to any piece of information that we are sharing with them, it helps quite a lot.
Absolutely.
It
Yes.
helps engaging the sentiment, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there might be certain times where a couple of rounds of discussions are happening in a similar fashion. Then this I'm talking about competitive bids where the customer is talking to 5 to 10 different suppliers. The customer might finalize on top two or top three. There, the customer, either they will have another fresh round of discussions, or they may at times also ask for the statement of work. So now, for the audience, the Previous proposals that we are talking about, where we are talking about the kind of services that we'll be delivering, what will be the commercial cost and everything, that is, of course, you cannot deviate from your original proposal very much, but from a legal standpoint, I would say it's not binding. The customer would want to draft a contract with you, which is called a statement of work. So
SOW.
this, yes, SOW. So this SOW is where we clearly outline what kind of environment understanding we have, what kind of assumptions we are making,
Mhm.
and what is the exact technical or commercial scope of work that we will be performing for the customer. So now this is a legally binding document. This undergoes, first when we draft it, it undergoes multiple rounds of reviews, because
Hmm.
we don't want to overcommit to the customer, and we don't want any kind of a situation where the customer is also at loss. So there will be internal rounds of discussions. We'll be discussing it with our internal delivery teams. We'll be discussing these SOW drafts with our sales teams, and then once it's sent across to the customer, we'll also be discussing them with the customer. So this SOW, again, it takes at least a couple of rounds of iteration, and then if you win it, then the SOW gets signed, and you'll be asked to basically start the services.
Okay, and that is where the implementation actually starts,
Yes,
and the ops team and the implementation team takes it from there.
correct, correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Now going into but thank you very much, Pulkit. This was a good extensive process, step by step process of what happens from a time organization gets a customer to the time the implementation happens. Right now, I would like to understand some of the customer side of the thing, right? What are the challenges that the current customer is trying to solve? What are the top two, three challenges that you see that the customer is trying to solve?
see, ever since the onset of COVID, the challenges that the top critical challenges that come to my mind is, first and foremost, it is remote work.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now, pre-COVID times up until 2019, most of the office work was still being done from within the office premises.
Hmm.
Especially, this is something that I've seen in small to medium enterprises. Most of the office work was being performed during the business hours, and it was being performed from within the office premises.
Mhm.
So at that time, at least there was this notion that firewalls and all your traditional corporate network security measures, and having something as simple as an AD or an SSO solution might be adequate for securing the enterprise. But now, ever since COVID has happened, one of the commonly read phrases that I've seen is
Mhm.
identity is the new perimeter.
Absolutely. And I would like to just add one point here,
Yeah.
which is initially, right, organizations used to talk a lot about the perimeter security, right?
Yes.
And then I've seen a transition where it has become moved from a perimeter security to now, as you said, identity as being one of the perimeter. And eventually, moving forward, I would see there won't be any perimeter because everything is outside, right?
Correct.
You really cannot bring everyone inside a circle or inside a perimeter and then start to protect them because
Correct.
things are uh, being in a distributed way. So I
Yep.
think you rightly pointed out, although when you said remote work, it sums up the whole concept, but when we start to deep go deep down right into the remote work as a concept itself, there
Yep.
is so much complexities to solve there. So yeah,
Correct.
please continue.
Yeah. One more aspect to remote work was the need for enhancing the user productivity, that also went up quite a lot. As I said, even in the previous episode, I said that identity is not just about security. IAM is not just about security. It's also about how we can enhance the user productivity. So now, in these kind of situations where you're not going to office daily and you are not getting in face-to-face contact with the IT team,
Mm-hmm.
you need a good deal of self-service automations also. If you need access to certain sort of applications, so you need that kind of self-service automation over there, that where any user can raise a request by himself or herself, and based on their roles or through some approval workflows, this entire process gets automated. So this is also one place that I've seen sort of a shift when it comes to identity.
Okay,
Earlier,
self-service, right?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, self-service features. Another thing, Ravi, that I've seen at least in my past 5 years is now there is a growing need for securing the access for the external people, those folks who are not a part of your enterprise. There are two aspects to it. Many of the organizations, they work with partners, right?
Channel
They will
partners,
be working
suppliers.
with channel partners, suppliers, or some partners for some sort of projects, and those partners would want to
Mm-hmm.
access certain sort of data, certain sort of applications. So
And is
now,
that where we, sorry, I'm just
yep,
adding one
sorry,
point. Is that where we talk about B2B, B2C, SIAM?
yes, that B2B aspect, the customers are really, they really want to secure any kind of external risk. And B2C is also, while any organization wants to secure themselves from any kind of cyber attack that may be initiated by the B2C users.
Mm-hmm.
On B2C, there is another aspect that the end users, people like you and me, or the normal people, they are increasingly become more aware of their cyber security.
Mm.
Now, let's say, if like I'll take a personal example. Someone in my family, my father, he wants to buy something off of the internet, and when he is discussing it with me, I say that buy it from some Amazon or some Flipkart or some trusted website, because these are reputed names. So I believe that they will have adequate security measures where they can store and secure all of my data properly.
Mm. Data
Any
privacy, data storage.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, this is a big business case for customers. If any other website comes in on the Google search, I will be extremely wary about how they may be processing and storing my data. While they may not be
Mm.
making misuse of my data, but I'm also genuinely worried that such websites might get easily breached, and all my credit card history, all my transaction details, they might get leaked.
Mm. Yeah.
So on the B2C side, yes, there is a pretty big growing awareness on that aspect.
Okay. Okay. And now I just want to understand some of the, when we talk about these growing threats, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the identity threats that you have seen customers more worried about and trying to solve using these identity platforms? Is there any one or two use cases that you can share that they came up with in order to maybe have a, could be, I mean, me coming in just saying that, okay, I really want to improve the self service and remove all my help desk folks because there is so much of identity thefts happening and I need an identity proofing solution. These kind of examples.
Yeah, when these ransomware attacks, at least initially when they
Hmm.
started, all the organizations, they were becoming very worried, and they wanted to see that whether they have adequate, robust security measures that can prevent or help mitigate against such kind of ransomware attacks. And Ravi, of late, I've seen this, especially in the hospitality sector. They, especially in the hospitality sector, these customers, they work with a whole lot of external partners. So it may be some company that they may be working with for their call centers or whatever
Hmm.
it is. They have become increasingly aware, especially recently, right? A few months back, there was this attack on MGM resorts.
MGM, yeah.
Yeah, and even it was based on some deficiency in their identity landscape. especially in the hospitality sector, there is like a growing concern on leveraging the right kind of identity solutions so that they do not suffer a similar fate. Like in MGM resorts, right? The attackers, they blocked access to all of their critical systems, their hotel booking platforms, and even their access card readers, right? All the guests who were staying over there, I think for most of the folks, their access cards they got blocked for a couple of days. So it was like a huge multi-million dollar loss for them. And off late, that has become like a point of concern in hospitality industry.
And these companies, these I would not say companies, but then these hacking groups like Scattered Spider that actually targeted MGM,
Yeah,
and they made this ransomware called Alpha B, something like that, a black cat ransomware. These are growing in numbers.
correct,
There are so many, and that's what I said, right? Like the moment an identity is introduced in an organization, there are risks by default associated with that identity.
correct,
We
yes,
simply cannot deny the fact. And yeah, thank you. You really brought up that point, and this could be one instance, right? And one of the questions that I really think about is whether here in India or across, are organizations really ready if something like this similar happens? Do they have a solution? Because again, implementation of a solution, even though you have a solution in place, it is practically not possible to implement it the very next day, unless until it's just a small patch or something. I believe that in order to prevent these kind of attacks, yes, you really need a system or a service to help you protect it. And implementation of that, knowingly that this is a threat that could potentially damage the reputation of the company and business, is very difficult to implement. So
right.
yeah, we can move on to the other threat scenarios we're talking about.
See, Ravi, from an organization readiness, I would say that there are two aspects to it. First is that do you have the adequate technology measures for the prevention of these kind of attacks? But it's it's like we're running a race with all these attacker groups.
Hmm.
All of these groups, these threat actors, even they are getting access to sophisticated technologies. 4 years or 5 years down the back, we used to focus a lot more on preventing brute force attacks. Now, brute force attacks are becoming increasingly easier to perform because of all the modernization of the underlying hardware and the technologies that these attackers are using.
Hmm.
So now it also depends on how you respond to any attack. Once
Okay.
you detect any breach, what is your response to basically dealing with that breach? How soon can you respond to it? And do you have adequate SOPs, written documentation to basically deal with these kind of breaches? If an organization is agile enough and they have proper systems, measures, SOPs in place, I think they can at least reduce the damage by quite a lot.
Hmm. And over there also, I put a lot of stress while talking to my customers and various customers that I have discussed in the past, is to have a BCPDR set up separately for managing identity or cyber threats. Yes,
Right.
there is a BCPDR for infrastructure level where you have multiple servers and then you do two data center concept for high availability and scalability. But while you're testing that, also make sure you have a BCPDR for these threats, the cyber threats. And
Yes.
that includes the identity. What if an account gets hacked, right? And then they start doing reconnaissance and then they do privilege escalation. And somehow, maybe after 2, 3 days, you find out what is
Correct.
your backup plan,
Correct.
because
Correct.
anything can happen. You really cannot predict. And one of the importance, and he was doing a whole episode on this, is the importance of having a pen testing integration with the pen testing team, because pen
Yep.
testing does not involve just doing pen testing of your assets like servers and applications, but in general, your identity systems also.
Yeah.
What are the loopholes that you see there? How can an attacker get into it? And once you have listed down those vulnerabilities or threats that has been identified, either accept the risk, transfer the risk, mitigate the risk.
Yep.
Simple. I think these are the three things that they can do. And maybe from there, they can have all these BCPDR documents, SOP, as you just mentioned, in place in case if that event occurs in the future. It
Correct.
could be one off, but what if that could bring in potential damage?
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much, I would say, Pulkit, for bringing these threat related concepts, because identity as a whole is not just IAM and implementation. It is also all the threats that is associated with that particular tool or software that we are using.
Yeah. Yeah.
करोगे इसमें या can we move on to the next question?
नहीं रवि, आई थिंक दिस इज गुड इनफ, मतलब मेरे माइंड में तो और कुछ नहीं आ रहा अभी.
Okay, okay, okay. ठीक है. तो second is, I think we talk about use case challenges, domain. I think one of the thing that I just want to discuss is basically implementation आप जब करते हो, I'll just put it in English anyways. Whenever you're trying to do this implementation, can you list out like one or two challenges that you have really faced while doing an implementation or even any process, right, that you do day to day?
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
challenges do you get often?
See, Ravi, as part of pre-sales, we typically do not get involved in implementation, but I can talk about implementation proposals that we give to the customers.
हाँ, मतलब आपके रोल पे ही
Yeah.
आपको क्या-क्या चैलेंजेस आते हैं? फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं
Hmm.
जैसे एज़ एन आर्किटेक्ट मुझे जैसे रिक्वायरमेंट आता है, लाइक
Yes.
एज़ एन इंजीनियर मुझे पता था कि एंड टू एंड डॉक्यूमेंट सब कुछ दिया जाता था मेरे को,
Hmm.
बस इम्प्लीमेंट करना था। अभी
Right.
कैसा है, मेल में एक लाइन आता है और उसके बाद भाग-दौड़ शुरू होता है। इससे पूछो, उससे
हाँ.
पूछो, राइट? अब उसमें मेरे लिए तो भाग-दौड़ ही चैलेंज है, क्योंकि मुझे क्या हेल्प करता है कि मैं डायरेक्टली सब कुछ करके नहीं जाता हूँ, थोड़ा-सा करता हूँ और स्टेक होल्डर हो गया मेरा,
हाँ.
डायरेक्टर जो भी है रिलेटेड, उनसे पूछ लेता हूँ कि इज़ दिस गोइंग इन द राइट डायरेक्शन और नॉट? अगर वो बोलते हैं कि नहीं यार ये तो गलत ही हो गया,
हाँ.
सोचने बैठता हूँ, वरना वो बोलते हैं कि ठीक है, यू आर गोइंग इन द राइट डायरेक्शन, फिर मैं
Hmm.
वहाँ से फिर नहीं पूछता हूँ। आई एम जस्ट गिविंग एन एग्जांपल कि मेरा तो डे टू डे में यही स्ट्रगल है। तो वैसा व्हाट आर सम ऑफ द रिलेटेड चैलेंज दैट यू सी? आप 1-2 भी बताओगे एंड देन यू से कि आई ट्राई दीज़ ऑप्शंस, दैट ऑप्शंस, सो दैट फॉर एग्जांपल आपके टीममेट है या फिर कोई जो दूसरी टीम में है और नॉर्मल एनालिस्ट है, they may also be facing or a manager could also be facing and they could be clueless कि यार अभी इसमें क्या करूँ? क्योंकि प्रॉब्लम ये आ जाता है ना, जो मैंने अभी कुछ लोगों से बात की तो पता चला कि बहुत लोग तो जैसे अभी आपने बोला रिक्वायरमेंट गैदरिंग, आप रिव्यू करते हो, एसओडब्ल्यू का ड्राफ्ट बनाते हो। कुछ लोग तो क्लाइंट से पूछने से भी डरते हैं। तो इफ यू गिव देम
Hmm.
अ पर्सपेक्टिव कि आस्किंग अ क्लाइंट इज़ अ राइट थिंग, दैट्स व्हाट आई हैव ऑब्जर्व्ड। तो वैसा आप कुछ अगर सिनेरियोज़ एक्सप्लेन कर सको और उससे रिलेटेड क्या करते हो आप उसको फिक्स करने के लिए, तो दैट आई थिंक दैट विल बी हेल्प।
So Ravi, actually दो सबसे बड़े challenges हैं. There are two biggest challenges that I see on mostly on a day-to-day basis. First is aligning all the stakeholders.
ओके।
Okay, by stakeholders, even from the customer side, and typically when we are responding to any bid, na, so we have to interact with the delivery folks, the team who will be delivering all these services. If once the contract gets signed,
हुँ, हुँ।
then we also coordinate with the account sales, and of course you are the customer. See, account sales, while they have an understanding, a good understanding of how the IT processes work, but the account sales, they have to sell a whole lot of different services. They cannot restrict themselves to just identity management. They'll be selling cloud services, they will be selling infrastructure services and whatnot. So they will have a functioning, a high level understanding as to what identity services do, but they will not be having that detailed understanding of the kind of challenges that the delivery team will face, or what is the technical amount of work that has to be performed. They will have their own concerns regarding the overall commercial aspect of the proposal. Delivery side, right? While from what I've seen is that uh, most of the delivery folks, they are well aware of the commercial limitations. We can't add up on our effort and charge a good amount to the customer because it will not be viable for them. So they understand that, but yes, they have their own concerns respect to the risks or the challenges that the project may entail. So having that internal stakeholder coordination and getting on the same page of what is the most optimal solution for the customer, that is a challenge. By challenge, it takes a good part of the work.
Okay.
Getting multiple teams aligned together and then coming up with a single consolidated proposal. Then on the customer side, basically defending the entire solution that you have created. And many a times the customer, you don't know the sentiment of the customer, the mood of the customer. You will have to, when you're defending in front of the customers, there will be many things that you'll have to defend on the spot or take it over back to the internal teams. So having that coordination with the customer, that's also a bit of a challenge. Again, as I said in the previous episode, a good deal of the work requires you to be good with working with people. You need to address the concerns of what the sales team will have. You will need to address the concerns that the customers have, and you will also have to address the concerns that the delivery teams will have.
Okay, so basically have an overview of the
Yes,
requirements that you're getting in from the various stakeholders.
yes. And second, one more thing is nowadays the field of identity is changing at a very fast pace. There are new solutions that are coming up, and the client is asking for services around those solutions. These solutions might be just 1 to 2 years old. Reading up and getting an in-depth knowledge about all these new solutions and then drafting the solution, drafting our proposal for around these solutions, it also becomes a good challenge. But that is something that it can be mitigated by, yeah, reading up about all the newer technologies and having at least a working understanding of the larger field of this new particular solution.
Okay. Now, moving on to the next question. I think we are
Yeah,
anyways coming towards the end of the episode. So I have a round which is audience Q&A, where I do a poll in Slido and then I gather some of the questions that the audience would want to ask. So I have
sure.
two questions, and this could be basically a rapid fire round, and you can just give some quick answers around it. So the first question here is, when you talk about pre-sales, do you have different domains in pre-sales, like an access management pre-sales or a PAM pre-sales or a identity pre-sales, or does a pre-sales manager or an analyst engineer need to know about all the domains?
So you're talking only in the field of identity and access management.
Hmm.
A pre-sales manager or a pre-sales solution engineer will respond to bids having all sorts of technology domains. Yeah, so it can be privileged access, it could be SSO MFA, it could be identity governance, anything.
Okay. And
Yeah.
moving on to the next question, what is the job requirement currently? Do you face scarcity of people in the pre-sales department, or do you have enough resources to fill the gaps of the requirement that you get from clients?
Ravi, I think this is one thing that you and I can both agree, and it's also a good thing that at least in India, there is a good deal of requirement that is coming from the customers across the globe. But as of right now, pool the skill set availability within India, I think it can improve and increase. There's a good deal of opportunities in this area.
Hmm.
So there's not a very critical shortage, but yes, there is a good scope for new folks to enter into this domain.
Okay. Okay. So, thank you very much, Pulkit, helping us with the audience Q&A. Now, the final question is, what holds in the future of IAM? Like, you have things like AI, ChatGPT coming into picture, right? So,
Yes.
where is the future of IAM going in from a customer requirement perspective? Any top three things that you feel is where the customer requirement would be more focused.
See, one thing is that this is something that I've been seeing for last 1 to 2 years. There is an occurrence of converged or centralized converged identity solutions. 3 years before, we had market leaders in the space of identity governance. We had separate market leaders in the space of privileged access, separate market leaders in the space of access management.
Hmm.
Nowadays, first of all, there has been a customer demand also. Even the customer would ideally want limited number of people to manage all of their identity and PAM landscape. Ideally, they would want just one single team to manage their identity governance, application controls, and privileged access controls.
Hmm. Yes.
So this is one of the areas where the requirement is coming up. And another thing is, this is something I would say recent only. When the onset of COVID came, right? Companies, they started spending a good amount to modernize their whole IT landscape. They were making a lot of new investments and everything. While those investments are still happening, organizations are still, modernizing their landscapes and procuring new solutions and whatnot. Now, I think that spending from the customer, it has rationalized, because
Hmm.
again, while remote work is there, but organizations are slowly and steadily bringing all the people back to their offices, and now they're trying to rationalize what they spend in their identity investments. That's where also these organizations are looking for these consolidated identity solutions. One single OEM who can provide all authentication, identity governance, as well as privileged access solutions. So they are looking more towards that.
Okay, a centralized
Yes.
SaaS, cloud SaaS, or on-prem solution, which
Yes.
could solve
Yes.
all their problem. I think that's where you see CyberArk coming up with their own access platform, or Okta coming up with their own governance platform.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, that is where the
I
future is
mean,
moving more towards.
yeah, it's even Okta. I think they are in the process of launching their own PAM solutions, and Event also has come up with their own CPAM. Yeah, it's a growing market for centralized or consolidated IAM solutions.
Hmm.
One last thing that I would want to add over here is that there is a growing use case and growing interest in GPT and AI. Now, I know that some of these identity solutions, they are trying to leverage GPT for easing some of the customer requirements, creation
Mhm.
of roles. I know. I think Savient, they are coming out with their own GPT feature. I think Ravi just scratch that last bit, because I am not 100% sure, but yeah, I
Mhm.
can say that these GPT based investments from OEMs, the vendors, they are coming in. And another thing is, there is a growing awareness among customers that they need to secure machine identities also.
That is the new
Yep.
thing, right? Machine
Yes.
identities.
Yes.
Basically, I would say it is a part of the non-human identity
Yes.
to be translated as machine identities. But yeah, I see a
Yes.
growing demand in how every organization is trying to understand machine identity, as well
Yep.
as put policies and protection around machine identities.
Yeah, yeah. With these growing use cases, or especially of artificial intelligence, machine identities will be a critical area where all the customers would want to secure it.
Hmm, absolutely. But yeah, with this, I would want to end this episode, Pulkit, and it was really great, Pulkit. I would like to say that you really have some deep expertise into the entire process around pre-sales, or and also the different parts of IAM. And it was great to have you on the show, host you, and which eventually will help all our audience to gain great insights into the field of pre-sales. And again, I think this goes out for all the aspiring MBAs, uh, people who are already enrolled or planning to do MBAs. Yes, there are different opportunities, but cybersecurity, IAM, pre-sales, right, or even sales, there is a huge opportunity out there where you have good quality, right, of work that you are getting. You can learn continuously over there. You get good pay. So all of things are already there. So please make sure that you start putting this role as a checklist in your career path already. So, with this, I would like to thank you, Pulkit, for providing such valuable insight, and I wish to host you again in our future episodes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you so much. And just before closing off, I would like to add that the initiative that you are undertaking, it is really commendable. I remember my days when I was just starting in this field of identity and access management. There was not a lot of talk outside of course, my immediate team. There was not a lot of talk around this in general media. So yeah, I hope that for all your listeners, the series of podcasts that you are creating for them, they make good use of it and gather good insights of the field of identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much for such
Yeah.
kind words, Pulkit. And yeah, I think it's basically a mindset where you also have agreed to help the community. And my sole purpose of doing all of this is to help the community and make sure the challenges that we both have faced while I was starting like 6, 7 years, 8 years ago, or even when you started. My attempt is just to make sure that anyone who is currently into this field or would be trying to get into this field, right? They really don't have to go through all of this problem.
Yeah.
So they simply tune in to the channel, learn through all the experts that we have in our show, and then anyways, I'll be putting in some snippets around some technical topics which would cover basics of IAM and a lot of things around it. So there are a lot of things that I'm planning anyways as a part of this whole channel, which would be podcast, some identity stories, some technical deep dives, product evaluation, and a lot of it. So yeah, it was really great having you, Pulkit. And again, I know it was a long conversation, and which is a trend that I've seen with all my hosts that I've seen. I tend to record a 1 hour series, and as I said right earlier, I thought of having it as 30, 40 minutes, which eventually turns out to be a 2 hour, 2.5 hour with my previous guests. But I enjoyed a lot. I learned a lot because I do not belong to the field of pre-sales, and yes, I will definitely consider having this also as an option if in the future, because I never had the insight of a field something like this, although I've dealt with cybersecurity pre-sales managers, but I never knew that there is something on IAM. I could never interpret that. But thank you for getting us, giving me and all our audience the insight into the world of a pre-sales manager.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having me.
Yeah, thank you, and have a good night. We'll get by. So thank you. Take
Thank you.
care.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Good night.